Doing great. What about you?
That's very nice. Yeah, I'm okay. I'm still a little bit sick.
Your voice is kinda far away. Something is wrong with
Ah,
your mic?
yeah. Sick. Uh, it seems like I can't switch mics while recording. Does that mean I have to leave to change my mic? That makes it.
I don't know.
Alright, maybe I'm going to rejoin them real quick.
Okay.
Alright. Can you hear me better now?
Now you should
Hello?
go. You should be good.
Alright, alright. Okay. I think my Wi-Fi is very bad. I have zero idea why. Alright. So I'm just going to make this tutorial kind of style and mm, alright. So hello and welcome guys. Oh, alright. I can't share my screen. Why?
There are
One
two
sec.
people in the audience.
Yeah. Can you see my screen? My Wi-Fi.
I can see your screen, but I don't know. I feel like your voice is cutting. Can you speak?
I have zero idea why, but
Like try to speak like a long sentence
hello,
so I
hello,
can
hello,
hear.
hello, 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 hello,
Okay.
hello.
You, it seems you're
Welcome
good.
back to this tutorial. I'm Nick. We're in a live call right
Okay.
now.
You're good. Go ahead.
Alright, and you can see my screen.
It's
Can you
still
see my
loading
screen?
for me. It's still loading for me.
Okay. Okay, I got a message that I should try to. Okay, I'm going to rejoin again.
right, so can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you well.
Alright, that's good because I have not here hotspot, so maybe that will work. Can you see my screen? Yes, you should see my screen now.
Yes. Yes.
Able to see my screen. Alright, perfect. Hello. Alright, that's good. Perfect. Alright. So I've seen this cool After Effects kind of effect or scene on my Instagram page, and I thought it would be cool to recreate exactly the same for DaVinci Resolve with a couple of different animations and with a little bit more texture and style into it. So that's exactly what we're going to learn today. Yeah, so this is the After Effects version, this is the DaVinci Resolve version, um, and I'd say let's jump right into it, into the Fusion page. Or maybe I'm just going to play the whole animation one time through so that you can see. So nothing too special, but just very, very clean, very smooth. Um, Very nice title kind of animation. All right, so but we have a lot of notes, so I'm just going to go over all of the notes and explain what I did here so that you can just follow along and understand what I did here exactly. Alright, so first thing I did was doing the usual thing, so creating our base 3D node tree. If you've seen the other tutorials to this point, you're probably very familiar with uh, these four kind of nodes or five. So we have our renderer 3D, which is basically just the renderer for our 2D information. So in DaVinci Resolve, we can't just plug 2D information into 3D space. We need to convert them first, and that's why we have this image plane 3D uh, in front of all of our little subnode trees. And then the image plane 3D is going to emerge 3D, which is connected to a camera 3D, so that we have a camera obviously in 3D space, which is moving around like this one. And this is plugged to the merge 3D, and then the merge 3D is plugged into the renderer 3D to render out all of the information that we have now in 3D space and put them back into 2D space. So with our 2D information, we're putting them into 3D space with 3D camera, and then we're converting them back into 2D information to our screen. Alright, so let's just maybe start with with the background and the texture that you can see on top of it. So what I did was basically just putting in a background. If you want to add nodes to your Fusion in your Fusion space, just you can click on your keyboard Shift Spacebar and then type in whatever node you want, or you can go up to this little hotbar and just take this background node and drag it in. Then connected it to the image plane 3D and set the color to this cool looking dark blue. Then I added this sandpaper kind of texture to it because I didn't want it to look so flat, and I wanted to have some texture in it to give it a more realistic and cool feeling. So I've added that on top by just dragging this image of this sand thing into my node tree and then connecting it with the background by just dragging and dropping it at the line on this rectangle. And then I've just added a transform in between of them to move it around. So just if you click on the node and then you type and you press Shift Spacebar and type in whatever node you want, it will instantly be added into your node tree. Alright, so then I had this background with the texture in front of it. I went into the image plane 3D and I upscaled, or I dragged up the scale a lot to make it a lot bigger so that it fits the whole screen. And then I moved on to create this little circle with this icon and with the stars and the text animation with this cool looking glow. Um, yeah, so next thing I did here was creating another image plane 3D to not having them on the same exact layer. Then I've added a background which I connected then to the image plane 3D2. Then I set the alpha to 0 to make it see-through, so that this is basically just our node tree with 0 information. And yeah, because we always need a media in, we can't just have a node tree without a media in. And in this case, the background is our media in, or is acting like our media in. And then I went to Flaticon, which is a very cool website. And I've just typed in star. You can download all of the icons on this site for free. I have the premium version because I have to use it. I have to use it in yeah, commercial productions. But if you just want to use it for fun or for your self-use, you can just download them. And to be honest, no one will ever like ask where you got your icons from, so you should be safe even if you use them for your social media or anything, and you publish it. Next thing I did then was adding it to my timeline, of course. Then I added a transform 4, which I plugged in then into my main node tree. Okay, quick second, I have to. Alright, so next thing I did then was like adding these little two stars, and I've added another transform for one to them to make them animate in the end, so to give it this cool little star-ish animation. By the way, I've changed something. The bit how I added the logo first, and then I'm going to explain the animation. So next thing I did then was just going onto Google, and I searched for DaVinci Resolve logo, plugged it in here, I added transform, and then I added a soft glow, but we're going to delete this because there's a way glow, which is Dream Glow. It's a free plugin for DaVinci Resolve, and it's just a glow that looks way, way, way cooler. So I've just added that, and then yeah, manage everything around with the Transform 3D. So you can just go to Transform 3D, go to your inspector, and then move the center X and Y values around and the size angle to move it to the point where you want it to be. Next thing I did then was adding this light sweep effect. So what I did here was basically just adding a background. I plugged it into my node tree, set the background color to white, and then I took a rectangle. I masked out the exact part of of the DaVinci Resolve logo, and then I've added another node, and I've just created this huge little I don't know, line with this box, or this huge rectangle, and I lowered the opacity from this node to like 0.2, so it has this light sweep kind of effect, and I just animated the mask on top so that it looks like this. So I went to the beginning where I wanted the animation to start, and I went in the inspector to the center X and Y. I keyframed it, put this thing to this position, and around 30 frames forward, I've set the next keyframe and put it a little bit more downwards. Like here, you can also just drag this around. I think it's a little bit easier. And another very important thing is that you set your second mask, because usually it will be on merge if you just add it, and you need to be it on subtract and then invert, because otherwise everything in this mask will be outmasked, but you want that you are only able to see your mask inside of this rectangle mask, so you have to invert it and put it on subtract. That's very important. Alright, so then you have your logo and your two little stars, because here I just added the same star again. And what I did then was animating one of these stars. So I just went to the transform node, and then I went into, wait, where did I animate it? Oh, okay, so that's the node where I animated the star. So I just took a couple of frames, so around 50, and then I set it a starting point at size and angle, and then I went 50 frames forward, set it another keyframe, and then I went around 20 frames forward, oh no, 15 frames forward, And then I've increased the size a lot. Out and then it's going back a little bit. I think this effect looks really, really cool. And then the second thing I did was just going into the angle, set a keyframe, go to the end, set another keyframe and adjust the angle a lot so that it rotates about minus 280 degrees, and animating the rotation or the angle, or to animate the curve of it to make it look a lot smoother. So what I did was just going to the transform. I took it, I clicked on the spline tool, I took it and dragged it into here so that it's only visible, so that just the transform 4 is visible in our viewer. And then I unchecked the size and just went to the angle, and I went to the second handle and dragged it out a lot so that it looks really smooth and cool. And that's then basically the animation. We could as well animate the size as well, so just highlight it and press S on your keyboard. This will make it maybe a little bit smoother as well for the size. It looks okay. Maybe we have to drag this out then again as well. But this is how I did this little star animation. And the best edits are living from like cool details like this. So maybe you think, all right, that's a lot of work just for this little detail. But trust me, it's actually very easy, very simple if you have just found out once how to do it. And those are the little details who make your animations stand out and make them like. Alright, next thing I did then was just adding this text, day one. So I went to find a really cool font. In this case I found Arcade Classics to have this video game style look. I think it looks really, really dope. So I've added the text layer to my note tree, then I went into this box and just typed in whatever text I wanted. In this case was day one, or you can type whatever you want. And then you can change a lot of things, for example like the color, the size, the tracking, and a lot of other things, but in this case I just kept everything on white, and then I just added another transform node to move it around, and afterwards a dream glow, because like I said before, this dream glow looks very, very cool, and it looks a lot cooler than the soft glow from DaVinci Resolve. So I added dream glow to the uh, text effect to give it a cool glow. Alright, next thing I did then was creating this circle, and I did it a little bit unconventionally, I would say. So what I did here was basically just going into the text. I typed a lot of, I don't know what they are called, but I typed a lot of them, and then I went and changed the font to Abril Fat Face, so you can change it to whatever font you want. But in this case I thought like this sleek look is looking the best, so I changed to Abril Fat Face. What a name. And then I went into the transform, no, actually in layout, and then I changed the type from point to circle so that it has this circle-ish shape. And then I went back into the text and I animated the right on effect. So I went in the beginning, set it to 0, and then in the end, I have zero idea why here's second keyframe. But then I went in the end and set it the last keyframe, or like just drag this slider out so that it has this building up kind of effect. And to make it smoother, I went into the settings and checked on this box with motion blur and changed up the quality. So basically it starts at 2, but I've decreased it to 8, increased it to 8. Yeah, the higher you make this number, the better your motion blur looks. And you have to keep in mind that it's using a lot of your CPU. So if you haven't a decent PC, I would uncheck this or till you're rendering, or I would just decrease it to a lower number. And next thing I did then was going to the transform actually, and then I was going a lot of frames forward to around frame 68. I hit it, the keyframe on the angle, went back to 0, hit another keyframe, and then I was just increasing the angle or decreasing it to minus 140, 34. And what I did then was going into the spline again, so you can just always take your node and drag it in here to just have your node that you want to edit right now into your media viewer. You can as well click on this little icon to have this in full screen. And then I dragged out this handle a lot. And this is because I wanted my animation to, or this rotation to stop very slowly, because this is giving it this very smooth look. And I think it turned out pretty cool. Alright, so next thing I did then was only adding those little stars, and what I did there was finding a picture from a star. So first adding an image plane, of course, with a background with the alpha to 0 to have our image plane, or yeah, to have our little node tree. And then I went into internet to flat icon again. I searched for a star, added it to the timeline, and what I did then was just adding a background and drawing out these exact edges from the star. You have to keep in mind that if you are working in 3D space and you have your media viewer on the media out, you can't just draw on the media out one, because if you do that, your mask won't be accurate on your thing, because you're just trying to click in the 3D space, and this is getting shown differently than it actually is on the screen. It's a little bit complicated. So I would recommend you to just go to the merge and hit 1, and then it will be seen on your left side if you check this box. Oh, on the top. And then you can use your polygon to draw around in this field. Alright, so then I went into the background and I've set it, the type from solid color to gradient, and then I took a dark blue, and then on the other side a little bit brighter blue to give it a little bit more depth. One thing that DaVinci Resolve doesn't have, which I really miss from After Effects, is the light sweep effect, because this would have given it a lot more depth, in addition with deep glow, but we don't have that, so we just have to work around. And the thing I did then was just going into the image plane 3D1, into the transform, and then I tweaked around the different kind of axis and rotation to give it this 3D feeling, so you can drag those around to give it this 3D look. And then I just duplicated it and took the image plane 3D4 and put the second star in another position. So I just went into the inspector transform, dragged it up so that it's around on the top. Alright, so next thing I did then was basically just animating the camera. So I went into the camera 3D. Usually you should animate on your transform 3Ds, but I don't know why, but I accidentally animated the camera 3D. It's not an issue because we have no second camera movement in here, but usually I would recommend, if you especially work with several camera movements, to work on different nodes. That's really important. Alright, so I would go to frame 0, set a keyframe at the ZX for your camera 3D1, and then I was going like 45 frames forward. I set the next keyframe, and then in the beginning I was just dragging this up to around 170 or 180, and then I went to the beginning and set it to 0, and then I went into the spline again. I just took it, dragged it in here, clicked on this little icon to make it big, and then I just made this very smooth curve. You always gotta make sure to drag this handle out a lot. This is very important. And then we had this camera movement with this animation. But right now it all looks still very cheap and it really sucks. So what I did was then going back into my main timeline and I've added a bunch of cool effects, and I think now it looks really, really dope. So if you compare before, after, before, after, I'm not sure if you are able to tell in the screen, but it gives it so much more detail, depth, and everything. So I'm just going to show you how I did. First thing I was doing was adding an adjustment clip. You can just do this by to effects, type in adjustment clip on the search bar, and then this will show up, and then you can just drag and drop it into your timeline. Then I went into the open effects on the top bottom left, and then for this, by the way, I think you need the premium version of DaVinci Resolve. I have no idea if that's true, because I've studied for so long now, but yeah. So you first thing I did was adding a vignette, so you can just go into open effects, type in vignette. I've added it to the adjustment clip, and then I tweaked the settings around a little bit, and I made it very harsh, because I think in this situation it looks very cool, because this icon is glowing and everything, and the borders are very dark, and it gives it this very, very cool centered look. Next thing I did then was adding an annihilation, but I deactivated it because I added a film look creator, and this really added a lot of magic. So you can find this here in film look creator in the open effects. So I set everything to cinematic, and I basically didn't change a lot. I think with the color blend, with the effects blend, to maybe not make it too harsh, but yeah, so you can play around with those settings. Then usually the halation is on, and it's very harsh, so it looked like this in the beginning, but this was a little bit too hard for me, so I just dragged the amount down by a lot, and then I went into the blue and just increased the radius a lot for the bloom. And this is how I created the effect. One final thing was that I went into the color page, so you can just click on the color page icon, then you can hit Alt S on your keyboard, then a second node will be created, and then you can go into your mask and set a rectangle, no, a rounded mask, so it's here, you can click on this icon, create a mask, and then invert it, so you gotta check this icon, and then I just add a Gaussian blur from the effects on the top right here. I typed in Gaussian blur, dragged it on, and increased it from 0 to like 0.4. And what this is basically doing is just making the edges a little bit unsharp and blurry. So before, after, and this gives it more this camera look, and I think it's just a very nice add-on to our effect. And yes, this is basically how we recreated this cool effect inside of DaVinci Resolve. So as you can see, you can basically do everything you want to do inside of Fusion page. I mean, we did so many great stuff to yeah, so thank you for watching again, and I'm glad to see you in the next tutorial. Alright, goodbye.
Nice.
Very nice. I think we did it.